નમસ્કાર, હું આદર્શ છું. વેલકમ ટુ આદર્શ એજ્યુકેશન સોસાયટી. Welcome students to 8th part of 14th chapter water of 6th science. In the last part we discussed about the cloud formation of cloud, and in which as we go higher and higher from the surface of the earth, it gets cool, isn't it? And same way, when the air moves up, it gets cooler and cooler. At sufficient height, it becomes so cool, so that the condensation of water vapor available in the air get condensed, and small, very tiny droplets of water are formed. When those droplets comes together, it becomes big drop of water, and the heavy drop of water comes to the earth, isn't it? Fall on the earth, and that is we call rain. And that is the process of formation of cloud. In the last part we discussed that. Then after we discussed about back to the ocean. As the rain falls on the earth, there is too much of water on the earth, isn't it? Now what happens to that water? Okay, that water comes to us in the form of rain, sometimes in the form of hail, and sometimes in the form of snow, that we know. Now what happens to that water? After all that water has to go to the oceans. Then how it reaches to the oceans, let's discuss about. So let's discuss back to the oceans, and on the page number 141. So open page number 141 in your textbook. What happens to the water that rain and snow bring to different region of earth? Almost all the land surfaces are above the level of oceans. Last time also we discussed that, and that is very important factor. That is why again and again I am repeating that almost all land surface are above the level of oceans. Most of the water that falls on the land as rain and snow sooner or later goes back to the oceans. This happens in many ways. So let's try to understand that. How does it happen? Snow in the mountains melt into water. See, snow has to melt into water. Okay, on the mountain it melts into water. This water flows down the mountains in the form of streams and rivers. That is also we know that snow melts into water, flows down from the mountains in the form of streams and rivers. Some of the water that falls on the land as rain. See, water as the rain on the mountain, it becomes snow. Now it becomes water and falls down on the land, one way. Second thing, some of the water that falls on the land as rain also flows in the river and streams. Most of the river cover long distance on the land and ultimately fall into the sea or an ocean. Now we come to know the formation of river, and most of the river, let me tell you, cover long distance, very long distance on the land and ultimately falls into the sea or an ocean. However, water of some rivers flows into lakes also. However, water of some rivers, but those are very few rivers that the water of that river flows into the lakes. Then the rainwater also fill up the lakes and ponds. See, some because of some river, the water of river flows into the lake. Secondly, the rainwater also fill up the lake and ponds. A part of the rainwater gets absorbed by ground and seems to disappear in the soil. See, this is very important. A part of the rainwater gets absorbed by the ground and seems to disappear in the soil. Some of this water is brought back to the air by the process of evaporation and transpiration. So, the rainwater, we discussed about the rainwater falls on the mountain, on the ground, on the lake. Now what happens? Some of this water is brought back to the air by the process of evaporation and transpiration. The rest seeps into the ground. We are talking about the rain on the ground, and it gets absorbed by the land. And some of the water, because of the process of evaporation and transpiration, it go back to the air. Now the rest seeps into the ground. Most of the water becomes available to us as groundwater. This is very, very, very important. See, everywhere, in every city, there is not a river is available. There is no lake is available. So then how we get the sweet water? And that is why this is very important, is that most of this water becomes available to us as groundwater. Which water? The water absorbed by the land. And most of this water becomes available to us as groundwater. Open wells are fed by groundwater. You know, we used to get water from the well. Then that open well, fed by what? It is fed by the groundwater. That groundwater comes to the well, and hence we can get that water from the well. Groundwater is the source for many lakes as well. Groundwater is the source for many lakes as well. It is also this groundwater which is drawn by a hand pump or a tube well or a tube well. That means the water drawn by us through the hand pump as well as tube well, it is by the groundwater only. From the groundwater only we are getting that water by the hand pump and the tube wells. The more hand pump or tubelets that are used in an area, the deep water we need to dig, the deeper we need to dig to find the groundwater. Once again, this is very important. The more hand pumps or tube well that are used in an area, the deeper we need to dig to find this groundwater. Why? Because if there are too many hand pumps and tube wells and wells are there, then what will happen? All the groundwater at the upper surface will be used. Then what will happen? We have to go more deeper to find more groundwater, isn't it? So that is why the more tube wells and hand pumps are there, then we have to go more deeper in the ground to find that groundwater. The loss in the level of groundwater due to overuse is worrisome. Nowadays only, if you want to find groundwater, then at least you have to go more than 300-400 feet in our area. Why? Because we are using too many hand pumps and tube wells. That is why. So the loss in the level of ground water due to overuse is worrisome. Pehli wants to share a concern with you in those areas where the land was little or no vegetation. The rainwater flows away quickly. Now the second thing start. The rainwater flows away quickly. Why? Because where there is a land has little or no vegetation. On the ground you must have found many plants, many vegetation, grass is there. Then that rainwater will not go quickly, will not flow quickly. But if it is not there on the land, the vegetation is not there on the land, then that rainwater will flow very quickly. Flowing rainwater also takes the top layer of the soil away with it. Now, as the rainwater flows, it takes away the upper surface of land, that soil with it. And that is why flowing rainwater also takes the top layer of the soil away with it. There are few areas where most of the land is covered with concrete. Now we had discussed one thing. Now the other thing we are discussing is that it is what? There are few areas where most of the land is covered with concrete. This reduces the seepage of rainwater into the ground, which ultimately affects the availability of groundwater. See, this is what we are discussing. Too many tube wells and hand pump, one of the problem. Second thing, if there is no vegetation and plants, then also the rainwater will flow very quickly. Second thing. Now third thing, why we are not getting enough groundwater is that the area is covered with concrete. That is why that rainwater will not get absorbed in the land. And that is also, this reduces the seepage of rainwater. Means the rainwater will not get absorbed as there is a concrete. So that reduces the seepage of rainwater into the ground, which ultimately affects the availability of groundwater. So we had discussed three reasons. Too many hand pumps, because of no vegetation on the land, rainwater flows very quickly. Third, the surface is made up of concrete, ground surface, and that is why there will not be seepage of water, and ultimately affects the availability of groundwater. So we know that the water brought back to the surface, to the earth by rain, hail or snow goes back to the ocean. Ultimately, that water goes back to the ocean. Thus, water from the ocean and surface of the earth goes into air as vapor, returns as rain, hail or snow, and finally goes back to the ocean. The water becomes vapor, once again it rains, and once again it becomes vapor on the from the surface of the ocean and from the surface of the land also, where there is a water. The circulation of water in this manner is known as water cycle. The circulation of water in this way is known as water cycle. This circulation of water between ocean and land is a continuous process. This circulation of water between ocean and land is a continuous process. This maintains the supply of water on the land. This maintains the supply of water on the land. So hence we come to know the water cycle. From rain, once again on the land, in the ocean, once again it becomes, with the process of evaporation, it becomes vapor, once again condensation at higher level, once again drops of water to the earth, once that is rain, once again to the ocean. That is a water cycle, है ना? So we learned about the water cycle, and in the next part, see rain, we understand the rain, है ना? But in the next part we will discuss what if it rains heavily. So we'll discuss in the next part. By this time, let's end this part and we'll meet you in the next part. Thank you. Thank you for joining us. Take care of yourselves and we'll meet you in the next session. Thank you.